How much money do you need to change your life right now? And what would you use it for? Story one, any amount over $1,000 that is unexpected changes my life. More money, more changes. $1, 10,000, stress reduction, but probably no major life changes. $10,000, $100,000, pay off student loans and small credit card debt, ability to enroll youngest in daycare, which should help my wife get back to the workplace a year tilde earlier. $100,000, $500, 00 above plus buy a house. Various levels of change above that, maybe some new furniture, car, etc. But I think the next level that would really change would be like $2.50 million, where I'd be able to quit my job and maybe start a small business or something in the future. Story two. It's not the money, mate. It's the knowledge of what to do with it. Ain't that the truth? I've seen people blow through money in ways that are truly hard to grasp. People who I thought were in a rough spot through reasons beyond their control managed to actually get a pretty decent windfall and then proceed to blow it and end up right where they were before it. Which brings me to the realization that their main problem before wasn't bad luck or tough socioeconomic factors, but the simple fact that they've never taken a day in their lives to sit down and seriously consider how they should manage and handle the money in their lives. Story three. My wife and I make good money, and I try to find ways to do this as I'm able to. It's small gestures to us, but it means a lot to people. Some random examples from the past few weeks. Eating dinner and overheard a couple talking about their kid in the ICU. Paid for their dinner. Set aside $1K for generous holiday tips to our regular service employees. Salon, favorite restaurant bartender, nail tech, etc. These little things bring a smile to people and helps them out a bit. I will never do something for someone who asks, for example, my family, but will often do these things for those who don't. Story 4. I'm on target to comfortably retire in 5 years at the ripe old age of 45. It's required a lot of frugality and a decent income, and debt-free, and honestly haven't spent my paycheck since 2019. We live off the wife's salary and invest mine. So smaller amounts definitely wouldn't change my life, but about $700K would put me past the goalpost and into retirement today. Story 5. I would buy my parents a house that's not falling out from underneath them. They can't work anymore and have no savings left because their taxes have gone up so much. It's a dire situation that's something I didn't think I would have to worry about when I got older. I will probably end up moving them in with me. I consider myself to be right on the edge of middle class. I'm hanging on by a thread. It's not a lack of work ethic. I have a good job that pays well. It's just too expensive to try and get ahead of the game, especially when worrying about family. Story 6. No money will cure what ails me, but my mom is sick, her house is falling apart, and she has custody of my nephews. She's 66, turning 67, obese, on blood thinners, 3x cancer survivor, has venous insufficiency, and a host of other ailments. She has insurance but has no savings, no job, and bare minimum to scrape by. I would love to have just enough to pay off my house, car, and student loan, $120K left on all three, and then buy my mom and nephews a place of their own. I can contribute all I can already, but she deserves more. Story 7. I could easily use between USD $10,000 and $500,000 right now. Just spent most of my money on helping friends and family last 5, 10 years for a bunch of stressful things, even if virtuous. So I'm rebuilding life both financially and generally speaking. Anywhere in that range would go towards housing. If I magically had more than that, I would allocate up to a few million to rebuild my retirement completely. I was retired 10 years ago, LOL. If I magically had more than that, I would consult with professional legal/investment firms on how to invest it in order to create regular wealth that I can donate to charities or use to fund my own charities while still growing the principal investment. So enough to grow it and regularly give away some. In other words, story 8, $30,000. I can pay off my debts and take custody of my sister's children. Right now, I'm just too strapped and worried that if I take custody, I might not make ends meet. If I could pay down my credit card balances, car that frees up a lot more monthly income. I just bought a house, which was step 1 in the process of getting the kids. Story 9, £30K would allow us to do some work to the house and make our life a little less stressful. We have stuff everywhere at the moment, so home no longer feels like a safe space. £250K would pay off the mortgage and maybe mean I could take a slightly less stressful job, which would benefit all of us, as I'm not happy really at the moment. £3 million would mean we could both give up work, so that would be properly life-changing. Story 10. I'd take $5 million US. I would invest $3 million and live off the dividends. The other $2 million, I would buy an oceanfront home, car, and anything else I've been needing for a while. I would also buy my mom and aunt houses, and I'll take care of their expenses from now on. Story 11. The money I need to feel comfortable is different from what I'd say is needed to change my life. Comfortable would be like $100K, pay off my debts, and have a bit left over for savings. Changing my life means something big to me, so that would be on the order of $200K plus, an amount that would let me give significant money to my friends and family and make improvements to their lives. Story 12, 1K, I can afford a new CPAP I need. 2K, I can afford my next semester of school. 6K, I can also clear my credit cards. 12K, I can also get new gutters. 90K, clear the previous issues and the halak I should have never taken out. Each level would remove massive amounts of stress. Been selling off all my stuff, but still not making a dent in my issues. Failed investments and having kids made things rough, even with a good career. Story 13, changed my life in what kind of way? Having enough to pay off my debts, $70,000, would allow me to change how I spend and save and would relieve a lot of stress for me, so that would change my life. But if we're talking about a massive change in my lifestyle, like moving up to the next wealth bracket, being able to afford very high-end cars, etc., it would probably be a few $100,000. Story 14, the lowest amount that would be enough would be about 55K USD, rough conversion from my currency. It would be enough to allow me to put a down payment on my own apartment, as well as pay off my car so that I could more easily afford the mortgage payments. Story 15, 100K. It would completely pay off my student loans and be added to our savings for our kids, or the extra could be used to get a bigger car, which I desperately need. 500K would be enough to set money aside for my son with autism to help with any care he may need in the future, and to also help us move into a bigger home. Story 16. About 50K to pay back the loans for my flat and finance my studies to become a licensed social worker. With anything more than that, I'd replace my broken dishwasher and invest into myself to get a gym membership. That would get me back onto my feet and improve my life immensely. Story 17. Hit me with a cool 5 mil. It'd be enough for me to pay off all my debt, including mortgage, credit card, and car. I would hire an investor and take 2-3 million of that and invest. Hopefully they know WTF they are doing. Then from there, I'll live off whatever extra money is made. Then as the funds began growing, ID moved me and my family to a plot of land nearer to the city, but up in the mountains. It would be almost entirely self-sufficient. It would have well water/spring water, solar and wind power, a garden field to jur fresh veg, and my own chickens for eggs. Then ID also buy a horse for my girl who loves riding horses and taking care of them. And we would just vibe and game and garden and not be stressed anymore about how much I have to work in order for us, just to be able to afford electricity and groceries, etc. Story 18, 6.5 million, probably closer to 7 million. Now the housing market has changed. Husband and I have a list of people whose mortgages we want to pay off. But 1 million would pay off our own mortgage and redo the house and keep us financially secure for the future. Our house was 155K when we bought it, and we owe around 125K. Then we would redo the house from the bottom up, extension and into the loaf, and sort out the garden and the damp issue and repoint the whole thing, let alone bring the electrics up to date, etc. I'd keep the house as it is, where I saw my son take his first steps and other sentimental things. The bones are good, but we lack the money to improve. We'd get an electric car, sort out our medical issues, then put some in a high-interest trust fund for our son. Go on our first ever holiday. Relax. Hubby still wants to work as he enjoys it. Story 19. I would need a lump sum that will sustain me through retirement. I'm old enough that I don't want to go back to school, move to another profession, or start a business. So the amount to change my life would be the ability to start retirement now. Aside from that, traveling abroad once a year would change my life in the sense of experiences, so a smaller but still hefty chunk of cash would do. Story 20. Couple mil to put my kids through college and let me stop grinding to keep a job with good insurance for them. I'm more than ready to retire in some little cheap spot with my cats and kids till the state, Florida, is below sea level. So yeah, that's enough to get me there. Story 21, $500K, and I would retire tomorrow. $250K, and I would start working part-time and coast into retirement. No other amount would really change my life immediately. We are about 5 years from retirement, have no debt, and have saved a fair amount over the years. Story 22. My wife and I had this discussion a few times, and it would take you money to really change our lives. We already have enough to save for our kids' college education, to go on vacations, and to deal with an emergency from time to time. Meaning that unless it's so much we really wouldn't need to work anymore, a large sum of money just goes to our savings or investments. 5 million euros would probably do it. Story 23. If I could get like $5 million, I could build the dream home that my wife and I have wanted to build. Then just be done with that, not having a mortgage. The other 3.5 M could be invested and saved for my children and for actually experiencing the world. I know that's a lot, comparatively, but I'm in an already decent place in my life. But building a home is expensive, and it's going to take a while to save up to do it. 5 mil is not retirement money, but it's much further along than the tilde 12K I have now. Story 24. To change my life? $100 million. I would be a completely different person if I had no financial worries for myself and the family I have made. With that money, I would set up a family bank via whole life insurance and fully fund everyone's policy so they can withdraw cash, interest-free and payable on death. I would also buy the obscene house on our road and turn it into a community center for all. I would create endowments around my community for all public schools. I would fund community projects. I would buy that abandoned marina on the lake and turn it into a restaurant/marina and overpay the staff and undercharge the customers. I would renovate my current home and overpay the contractors. This would be a completely different life than the one I currently live. Story 25. A couple million. The only thing that really weighs on me is needing a lot of renovations and repairs done on my duplex, which means finding 2 families' homes to live in for 6 months, while everything from full wiring to plumbing is upgraded from the current 100-year-old stuff. Story 26. $2 million. I wouldn't spend a dime of it, but I would invest it and use the return interest to fund the nonprofit I was working on full-time. Like seriously, the donations and fundraising covers the costs, but leaves zero money to pay staff for time and labor. As soon as they get access to money to hire people, they blow it all on projects without paying anyone and rely on volunteers. Story 27. I need about $70K to clear my debt. It's a result of a few bad decisions and some seriously bad luck. I have a good job and am stable on all payments, but have no money after paying all the bills, debts, food, etc. If I cleared my debt, I would have like an extra $1,200 per month back in my pocket and be able to actually plan for the future. Story 28. Your life changes to different extents depending on the money. I would probably say about pound 175, 200K. Reason being, we currently have a mortgage on a property. Both work and earn roughly average salaries for the area, maybe a tiny bit below. The only significant change in my mind would be if we could move to a nearby area, which is much nicer. The house prices are around double to get something equivalent size-wise. That money could allow us to purchase a decent house in that area and be in roughly the same place when it would come to the remaining mortgage as we are now. I would call that somewhat life-changing, as we don't want to retire in this house ideally, but we'd likely stay there for life, so life's plan would be more firm. Story 29. Probably enough to pay off the remaining of our mortgage. We aren't underwater or anything, but the remaining is a significant amount in the short term. In the grand scheme of things, it isn't not a ton of money. Freeing up the house payment would probably push me to take a risk and start a small business. Not that I don't enjoy my career or anything. I'm not actively looking to make a big change, but I'm not willing to risk our home and/or retirement on a small business that might fail. Story 30. I'm still at uni, and I have accumulated a substantial amount of money through investing and budgeting. Once I hit 30, I will be financially secure. I have very few friends outside my church congregation, which helps me budget because we all share best practices on investing in jobs. The answer to your question is 10 million pounds. With that, I would be able to do missionary work and make a difference to other people's lives. Story 31. Change my life. That's the key word. I'd need enough to pay off my college loans, so 25K. Then enough to build my son his own room in the unfinished part of the house. Probably another 20K. That all sounds nice, but would it be changed? I guess I'd have to have my house paid off too, so make that a total of around 250K. Yeah, that would change it for sure. Story 32. Those are good ideas and gestures. My husband and I are good tippers year-round. Working customer service is hard, and even if the service or food is not what we normally expect, we still tip. You never know what someone is going through at any given moment. When we were in the COVID lockdown, I would go out to buy groceries for the family, and I would purchase a gift card, and after it rang up, I would give it to the cashier. They did not get a choice to work from home, and they are paid a small wage. I'm in IT, so remote work was possible. I did not have the stress of working with the public during COVID. We donate monthly to charities. I am looking for community impact. I want to give back to those in my community. Every once in a while, we will buy a lotto ticket when the jackpot is very large. I always thought if we won, we could help out our families, enough for hubby and I to keep our current simple lifestyle and be retired, then community help where we could. But that's just a dream. Thank you for your reply. Story 33. $1 million should do it. New home. Current one has tons of maintenance needed. I'm actually scared it will hurt my family. New car. Mine has all kinds of issues. Dental and medical. My teeth need some serious help, I just don't have the money for it. Medical, I feel all the stress about the money, the house, and the car are causing problems within me, and I don't have the money to go check myself. Story 34. I have been at the point where $1,000 would have been absolutely life-changing, but I'm doing pretty well now. I have a mortgage, 2 well-used vehicles, and enough income to keep those up, plus save for retirement, and fund my hobbies with some left over. If I have a family I'm the future, we could comfortably be a single-income household as long as we don't spend on further luxury. I have things I could spend money on, but those wouldn't be life-changing. At this point, the only thing that would be truly life-changing is at the level of letting me retire comfortably. That would take a few million in an annuity. Story 35. $150,000. I'd pay off student loans for my daughter and a couple other outstanding items. I don't need to have $1 million or $1 billion or even to pay off my mortgage. That is a part of life, and why would you change that? Just enough to take a little off the top for my daughter, my wife, and I would take a lot of stress off. Story 36, $3 million. Pay off house and retire. Then maybe go back to school or get an interesting job that's not about the money. Because RN, I'm only working for money, and it's so unfulfilling and boring. If I had a steady passive retirement income, I'd probably study and teach history or economics, or get into physics research. There's lots of fascinating things I want to explore, but I don't want to restart my career from scratch. I'm in too deep, and the golden handcuffs are tight. Story 37. Honestly, $15K would completely wipe out my debt between credit cards and my car payments. I went through a really rough time in 2021, got burned out, and had to leave my career. Since then, I've been living extremely frugally, but it seems like my credit card balance always ticks up just a little bit more each month. I started a design business with my girlfriend, and we're finally getting to the point where we're turning a profit after approximately 5 years. So hopefully that becomes a thing soon. Story 38, $250,000. I'm on permanent disability after a near-fatal incident on the job. The company handling my disability payments suddenly stopped payment, stating they misquoted my benefit amount. My lawyer informed me that even though my 2-page award letter reads one thing, it has no validity, and the multi-page insurance policy, which differs significantly from the award letter, is the true governing document. I was shorted $250,000 and will probably need to sell my house. Story 39. Honestly, if I suddenly had $26K, it would allow me to eliminate a monthly payment of about $600. And having that extra $600 every month would be enough to allow me to finally live comfortably and within my means once again. From the looks of it, though, it'll be another 3.5 years until it's gone, barring any unforeseen emergencies, which is how I got here in the first place. So either way, things are looking up. Story 40. Probably like $500K to be completely out of debt, pay off house and debt and student loans. Honestly, even $40K to help pay off the monthly debt from some personal loans. Makes me depressed to type this out, and you can only imagine the opposite effect it would have to unload some of this burden off of me. Story 41. To totally change the direction of my life, probably like $70K. It would allow me to pay off my car, get my student loans paid off since they're federal. Otherwise, I'd probably just claim bankruptcy and start over again and anything else on my credit-affecting debt-income ratio, and would still leave me a nice amount to throw into a HISA account or a mutual index fund that would start generating retirement wealth. Anything else I can pay for overtime with my job income, since I would be retaining more of my take-home pay. Story 4230K would pay off the consumer debt between my husband and myself, another $10K medical debt, 3 cars with over 250K miles, so a new car would be nice. We both lost our businesses during the pandemic. We are grateful for our home and our health. Hopefully Trump puts limits on the CC company's interest rates. Story 43. Approximately $920,000 after any taxes. I would use it wipe out my mortgage, my wife's student loans, the remainder of our auto loans, and our current credit card bill. The money is entirely being used as a big debt eraser. Our general income after that would allow for us to explore plenty of other opportunities on our own. The freedom would be incredible. Story 44. I think a net $1.5 million would make a serious impact on my life. I'd pay off my house, do some renovations, and finally go on an amazing vacation. I've never actually had one, and I've been working for 35 years, so it's long overdue. The rest I'd put away since I got a late start on saving for retirement. If I wanted to really change the world around me, though, I'd need about $500 million. I'd start buying multifamily and some commercial real estate with the idea of doing profit sharing with the residents. I'd even consider turning it into a nonprofit that offers grants to help people buy houses. It's a way to not just provide affordable housing, but also give people a real chance to build something for themselves. Story 45, 250 grand. Buy a nice little house. I'm in Wales, so I can get a semi for about 160 grand. Then use the rest to fund my life so I can go back to uni and finish my teaching degree while also volunteering with SEND and epilepsy charities. And I'd get a dog. Then I'd find a job in a special needs school and live the rest of my life content. But it'll never happen. The most I've ever been able to save is 10 grand. Born into poverty, I'll die there too. Story 46, $13,000 to get out of medical debt and finally not live paycheck to paycheck. I was on my way to work and slipped on ice. I bashed the back of my skull open. ER doc admitted me as a precaution. Insurance said that was not necessary, and I should have been sent home. Work said it didn't happen on the clock. Started off over 20K. This happened almost 8 years ago and has crippled my finances ever since, even making the lowest payments. Story 47. Bare minimum would be about $26,000 to pay off medical bills. But that would still leave me just making enough to pay for rent and groceries with my 40 hours job until things get more expensive again. I don't even know what would make my life better at the moment. A car would mean better job opportunities, but what are the odds I find anything that is actually enjoyable until I could retire? Story 48. Change it how much? I mean, it could be just a couple of hundred and get some new clothes, a haircut, things to make me feel better in myself would be changing my current life. Or it could be a couple million, enough to buy myself a modest home and get and kit out a workshop space and start my own bespoke cabinet-making business. I've always dreamt of having a country house with a space on site for a workshop and big garden with a vegetable patch and to keep chickens. So if I had enough to do that, it would be a dream come true. Story 49. All I want is enough to the house we want in a town closer to my husband's work and to pay our debts. Like 400K would change our lives. We've lived apart for over a year and now he's been home while he waits to start his next job. It's still 2 hours away, but better than the 5 in a mountain pass it's been. Just enough to free us from the dump we own now and move closer. Story 50. Genuinely around $400, $500. I want a gaming laptop, I always have, and my parents kind of got my hopes up this past Christmas with the promise of helping me get one, and it fell through. Regardless, it isn't just about gaming and getting to have fun, but it's more about connecting with my friend group better. I'm mostly on console and have been for years while they've all moved up to PC, and I've always just felt like I'm missing out. Even my console friend group have gotten their own. I just feel left out and kind of lonely because my access to their level of gaming seems unattainable with my paychecks and how they immediately go into rent, bills, groceries, repeat. I feel like I'd be able to socialize with my friends more, and that's honestly what would be so life-changing about it for me. I just want to hang out with my homies. Story 51, honestly none. Looking introspectively, what would I do with an extra 10K or 20K? Probably set it aside and invest it in the stock market. I have no debt. 1/2 my monthly income, after taxes and savings, goes to my rent and fees. Another 10 to 15% goes to basic necessities. The rest is going to savings or in my bank account for worthless spending. I have no children, no significant other, no car or car insurance. I go on vacation 3-4 times a year, and each outing costs less than $1,500 total. Another $10K or $100K won't change anything I do. If I got several million, I've already determined I wouldn't quit my job, but instead go on a structured work arrangement and only work 30 hours a week. Story 52. I think I'd have to receive a lot to change the way I live. I have a 2008 car model that is reliable. I would like a new car, but even if I receive 10-20K right now, I'd probably still save invest because I don't feel like I need a new car. My other big goal being purchasing a home, receiving 200K would change my life in that I'd feel financially comfortable to buy a home. But I definitely don't need it. Story 53. I just need to pay this car insurance debt so I can get my license back and be able to live normally again. Not having a license hurts in every aspect of my life, from jobs to relationships to even friendships. It's hard to keep a group of friends or get a girlfriend when you can't drive to pick them up. It's hard to get hired with a normal state ID. It's hard to get a good load of groceries home on the bus. This could be solved if I just pay the debt. But $8,000 is a lot of money to a college student living alone. More money than I've ever dreamt of having. So these are my cards right now. Story 54. Around $360K would significantly change my life if a robust and positive way. I would use it get a 3-bedroom apartment so my grandson has his own room, and to pay that rent for the next 10 years. Not all at once, but I would invest it safely for modest returns and be comforted knowing that rent is handled. I have a job I am very comfortable with that doesn't pay a lot, but it covers the bills. I would use more of my salary to pad up for retirement, hopefully at 65. Of course, almost any amount could impact my life positively. Maybe it would mean a little vacation for our family, possibly a nice dinner out. Story 55. Need is a very personal term and seems to be much more greedy than in the past. I worked all my life and very luckily, I have not really needed anything that I could not afford. Now my wife was totally different. She was very materialistic and no matter what it was, she seemed to need it. She was very needy and her needs played a great part in our divorce. I've always had a job, even as a 13-year-old. Now I had a very comfortable home as a child, but my father always gave me the third degree, while never questioning my sister's requests. I got to a point that asking him for anything was not worth the effort. Interestingly enough, one year he needed $900 to pay his income tax, and I gave it to him without giving him the third degree. I could not believe that he had the balls to ask me for the money, and I never got a thank you. Story 56. If I came into a large amount of money, I'd always try to help my loved ones first. Since you're asking about money to change my life, I think minimum would be $400K. Ideally would be $800K. My dream is to be a homeowner, but I live in an expensive area where I can't even afford to live on my own. The money would help me either buy a condo or co-op or put a down payment on a home. I'd also get an MRI without having to go through insurance and put money towards PT/acupuncture/cryotherapy/other innovative pain relief techniques. I've had chronic back pain for some time, and despite an X-ray showing disc degeneration, my insurance prob won't cover an MRI. For PT to be useful, I'd have to go a few times a week, and I can't afford it. I'm 30 and would pay anything to not feel like I'm stuck in the body of an 80-year-old. Story 57, £1 million. I can peacefully retire, live comfortably without having to worry of being homeless, even without work. Help my family. I'm not married yet and no kids yet, so just my grandmas and siblings, if I'm needed. Most especially get my mind straight again. Away from people at any workplace who just bully me all the time, just because of the way I look and my ethnicity. I have lived my life since childhood, up to now late 30s, being bullied all the time because of the physical appearance. Maybe if God permits, I'll have miracle one day to have all the money to make me very, very rich. I'll have that peace of mind. I will just be a volunteer if I'm needed. Story 58, 100K would be great, but to live debt-free, 150K. I would first pay off the 30K in credit card debt and personal loans we have. Buy my daughter her first car. Need something reliable since she would regularly travel in HR one way to the city, often from where we live. So that's another 10 to 15K. Totaled my car this year, need one as well. Where we live, where there are no ride-share apps or any businesses to walk to. Looking for work-from-home jobs is hell and impossible in this job market. So another 10 to 15K on a reliable car for me. 50K to pay off the only vehicle we have right now. And the last bit would go to pay off my 50K in student loans. Story 59. I really couldn't know the exact amount, but enough to buy a flat in a well-connected area, get my driving license and a car, furnish the flat, and a couple months' groceries worth in my bank account. Then my GF and I could put either her flat or my new one up for rent and live simply out of the rent money, despite our combined health problems, without having to degrade our health further with our jobs. Story 60, 30K. My grandma moved in with me a year ago because her house burned. None of her 5 children took her in. They are all worthless adults. Having to take her to appointments ate up my vacation and cut into my work time. Had to make updates to my house as she is 87. Would use the money to pay off my vehicle and pay off debt. Her son that took her in briefly was charging her $400 a month. Mind you, this is his mother. I didn't ask her for money as she already lost everything and only has so little as it is. This has shown me just how this family is. No one else offered to help or even to take her out to dinner for holidays or her birthday. No one calls her or checks on her even after having her pacemaker put in. Oh, and before anyone says why didn't insurance cover her house when it burned? We asked her if she had insurance. She said, I didn't have insurance because I couldn't afford it. She lived in a trailer house. Again, shocked at the time when all this happened and yet none of her children helped at all. Story 61, about 4K GBP. I would pay off a debt with a debt collection agency who have been driving me mad. They have made me so depressed. They email, text, phone, go on social all the time. I lost my job due to ill health, and this is really making me unwell physically and mentally. I realize it's not a huge amount, but it may as well be $4 million to me right now. And sadly, I have no realistic way of ever paying it off. Benefit is not that good. So they will keep chasing me and pushing me for money I don't have. Last week, I gave them all my benefit and didn't eat for 3 days. They are still pushing for more that I simply don't have. I don't know how much more I can take. Story 62, roughly 3 million CAD. Pay off the current house and move somewhere decent enough. Not a mansion, but not a barely counts as an apartment executive townhouses. That works out to be tilde 700, 800K with fees and moving costs. Buy a decent Toyota, which are now as expensive as Teslas somehow, tilde 40K. Invest half of it, spread it out in long and short-term gains. 1.5 spread around in a diverse portfolio means I won't have to double-check every statement. Keep the rest in a savings account, tilde 500K. That accounts for quick popping major costs, possible renovations, unexpected job terminations, etc., while earning a small but non-negligible interest because of the amount. Send tilde 250K to my parents, who can now move out to build a 2-3-story house back home, rent the half of the units, and live happily with the rent money, supplemented by their small amount of pensions. Now I have a great house, a mode of transport, and enough finances, both liquid and invested, and settled my parents as well. Story $63.15K would alleviate a huge point of stress in my family's life. We're mostly doing okay, just trying to save money for that major expense that has a kind of looming, ominous deadline. Beyond that, something like $100K plus would of course be life-changing in a different way. The more that can go into my investment accounts, the sooner I can retire, or at least get to a point where I'm working for fun rather than for survival, meaning that much more time I can spend with my family and doing the things I love. Story 64, minimally, $100,000 after taxes to pay off my debts. To make me a happy Lothar, $2 million after tax. I pay off my debts, buy 2-3 duplexes to rent out using a rental management company, put the rest in trusts to cover incidentals and another one to feed charity donations to homeless shelters that actually give a about what they do. Then keep working till retirement, allowing my rental income to remove the fear I have of pursuing a career I actually want while still contributing to a cause I would like to help alleviate. Story 65. Enough to pay off my debts and go to school full-time. I didn't have an opportunity to get a normal education as a kid, so as an adult, it's been hard to get through college, work full-time, and be a spouse and parent. I want to give my family a brighter future, but it's hard with my past biting me in the ass. I've had to stop school multiple times to focus on work and health problems. Story 66. The first few thousand would go towards fixing my truck. Then the next 40, 50 would go towards fixing the house. First the trees trimmed and removed, then the electrical, then the roof, then the plumbing, then the AC, then add a shower or tub to the master bath, then just do some painting. Oh, and then the driveway needs help big time. It might actually take more money than that. Any money after that would be to improve my kids' wardrobe. We have been outgrowing stuff around here. Then I would try to invest any additional to help provide for the future, maybe to another 300K. After that, it would be great to take the kids on a real vacation. 500K total for all would likely set us up for life as it is, but having some land to farm would be better still. Dreaming big, but we are happy now. We have enough. Story 67. I just started a business this year, and I'm loving it. I'm not fully successful yet, but business is slowly picking up. After years of treatment and pushbacks, I thrive on being in charge and my own boss. I have so many more ideas and need support on branding, social media, and other things, but I don't have enough money for it yet. I also want to add some more education, but that's expensive too. So right now I would use any amount to put into this as I believe in my business and am eager to drive it forward. Couple thousand would be great. 10,000 plus would mean extra education, more would be too much, as in the end I want to make it on my own. Story 68, about 50K, would pay off my credit card and my auto loan and give me a good chunk left over for a down payment on a house. My rent is very reasonable, but I've gotten stuck with almost nothing but neighbors in this duplex for the past 10 years. All but one of the 4 I've had have gotten themselves evicted. Haven't moved because the rent and space has been too good and the neighborhood is great, but it's time for more space and less stress. Story 69, I would say 6 minus 20,000. I really need to get back on my feet again. I don't have a car due to a wreck that totaled it, and I live out in the middle of nowhere, so that would be helpful and get me back on track so I can continue school and graduate, so I can work at a hair salon and to pay some bills, maybe get a house, and I would give to some charities, especially my best friend's son's foundation and all the cancer ones. Story 70 depends on the level of change. $80K would have a huge impact. Pay down debt, maybe start work on a tiny home. $194K would get me some property I'd eventually build on and could use that tiny home while I do so. $325K, it wouldn't get me a house, but it would get the property to a point where I could mortgage against it to build, well, septic foundation, some framing. $525K, well, that's pretty much the magic number right there. Would get me the property and a house, housing, although mine is stable, the market is ed here, and it's something I'm worried about in the future. Hence why I want to build a tiny home. I'll probably just end up using it for camping, though. $5 million. That right there would make a huge difference. It'd be life-changing. I'd spend probably $1 million building a house, getting some toys, e.g. fishing boat, etc., and put the rest in the bank and live off the interest. Story 71 minimum, about $130,000. I'm so sick of landlords upping my rent by massive amounts based on reevaluated property value. Over the last 5 years, my rent has nearly doubled, and I've downsized from a 5BD 2BT to a 3BD 1.5 bath. My house has 3 adults and 2 kids. We can't really go much smaller. That money would pay off my debt. It isn't much, but it exists, and give me a solid down payment on a house of my own. Story 72. $1 million could pay off our remaining mortgage, buy a new family car, fix up lingering upcoming home repair issues, and still have a bit to put away for children's education expenses and for a rainy day. Any money from working would just go to monthly expenses, recreation, savings, retirement, and animal rescue purposes. Not having the mortgage payment and needing to sock away money for repairs is huge. I don't want glamour, I want comfort and a reasonable cushion in retirement. Story 73. Probably like $1 million. I'd clear my student debt and try to save up and invest a lot of it. I could finally take like half a year off and work on some stuff that'll help me make more money than I'm currently making. Then I'd do that. Honestly, I could probably just put the money in a savings account and live off the interest, or just let it build up and going. But then, my life wouldn't change all that much, except I wouldn't have to worry about my student loan debt. But I'd still be screwed healthcare-wise. So I guess maybe the real answer is like $1.5 million. Then try to invest, make more money. Eventually myself a small house, buy my mom one as well, keep trucking. If I were going full greed mode, I'd want $50 million so I wouldn't have to work ever again and could just mess around with projects I want to do without worrying about monetizing them too much. And I could buy houses somewhere nice. I'd live in Taiwan and Japan 2 or 3 months out of the year as well. If I were successful at investing, I'd have scholarships for guys in my hometown who want to be artists. The only art school remotely close to where I live is a women's only school. There's nothing here for guys. So I'd pay for them to go to art school and live in that area or take it online if they want. And if they keep their grades up, they can work for my company if they want for up to a year. After that, we'll work out a contract or whatever. If I had infinite money, I'd want to dabble in making video games and 2D cartoons for adults. Not like adult content, but like mature cartoons like Spawn, not comedy noodle arm animation, but high-quality animation aimed at an older audience like they have in Japan. If I had billions, I'd be funding Full Dive VR because I want it to happen badly. Story 74, exactly the price of a house. If rent wasn't a burden, I'd be happy with the way things are. I'm a musician. I love my job. I'd keep doing that, but maybe be a bit more picky about what gigs I take. But I guess 99% of people would be more than comfortable if housing wasn't a problem. Having to pay rent and trying to save up for your own thing is the biggest challenge of all. Story 7528, $94 exactly. That is all I need for my life to go back to where it should be. All of my problems would disappear completely. I'd use it to fix my car and catch my bills up. I would be able to breathe again. It's not a lot, but it feels so far away. I work 7 days a week, but every dollar I make has to go towards other people, bill collectors, etc. I feel like I'm drowning in a puddle of water. Story 76, to clear all debt, student loan, CC, mortgage. I'm sitting around $450K. I would be extremely grateful. I love to travel, so having $500K to cover my travel for the rest of my life would be amazing as well. However, my dream neighborhood, which is where I grew up at, would cost me 1-1.5 M on the low end to buy a 2 BDRM home. I would love to create a larger scholarship fund that awards HS students going off to college trade. I do this now, but it's $1K. So let's just say 2.5-3 M would be life-altering for me. I could also do amazing things for the people I love, like my newborn nephew. Story 77. I'm trying to save $30K to build myself a bigger shop, so I guess $30K would allow me to build bigger projects, take on more clients, and generally expand my business. I could take a loan against my house, but I'd really rather not have any more debt, so the project will probably have to wait another year or two. I could obviously ask for more to pay off my house and truck and everything else, but that will also come in time. That $30K would change my day-to-day life immediately.